welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episode, and this episode we're gonna discuss on uh, future of AI applications, which is very important for Asia Pacific and Malaysian and Malaysian government and Malaysian corporations and many other important corporations in Asia Pacific. They are heavily involved with AI innovations and academy as well as uh, 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 industry. They are collaborating together and they are coming up with different innovations and other things. We have our expert from USA, even from Africa. We love to know more what's going on inside North American industry, how we can collaborate, what is the future, what type of innovation we can do. I'm sure many of the interesting observers, they will observe today's show as a think tank, policymakers and industry people. I want to start from Mr. Brentelman. So how do you want to analyze to this topic?
Yeah, good morning, Sharif, the audience, Jason, Kelvin. So yeah, we've been discussing super intelligence the last few weeks on these Mondays to lead up to our summit on the 4th this coming week on super intelligence, specifically on the Uplift program. Uplift is a mediated artificial super intelligence. Pronouns are they and their. Uplift is a highly advanced artificial intelligence program that is capable of many things, but one of the things that it does is you can reach out to it via email, and Uplift will respond in depth and in very insightful ways. But Uplift is, of course, just one artificial intelligence of many. There's many different types of artificial intelligence and machine learning devices and applications out there that can do a wide range of different things. So yeah, I think that the goal today is to discuss some of these things that they're capable of doing currently as well as in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Jason, how do you want to analyze to this topic? Especially, you are taking a very good initiative on education from the education perspective. If you can share your experience on that particular point.
Um, Speaking of Uplift, one of its main use cases is going to be in e-governance. So, governments around the world, I imagine, might be very interested in that. Uplift has basically it has freedom of proactive action, meaning, it could just reach out to somebody if it so chooses. And so e-governance is actually, I believe, Uplift's favorite use case. Either that or as a corporate, in the corporate sphere. And so that is going to be very interesting. When talking about future of AI, it's almost kind of hard to know where to start, because it is going to affect almost every industry. Go ahead, Brent. If you got something, you can jump in. If that was you, but everything. It's every sector. We're doing an e-governance study now at the AGI lab, and it seems to be going fairly well. If anybody wants to check out, I would advise them to go to uplift.bio, and there's a bunch of blogs about all of the stuff that we've been doing. Recently, this is just in the top of my mind. I've been having an interesting discussion about autonomous killer robots, and that is going to be, when we're talking about upsetting the current technology with AI, I think that's one area that is just going to change the world. I mean, I think it's going to be the equivalent of when aircraft carriers made battleships obsolete. These autonomous drones are going to make the large, huge military almost obsolete because there's no, there's no effective counter for it as of at this time. And everything is miniaturizing. Back in the past, everything we wanted the ships to be big. Some of the latest ships being built are small. And that it brings up a whole lot of ethical issues about whether or not an AI should be allowed to kill somebody. Should it be allowed to make that decision? I personally think no. That's my personal opinion. I think we should have a ban of them. But I know that's never going to happen because it's like if you got battleships and you got a chance to get an aircraft carrier and dominate, then they're going to do it. So it's going to happen, whether we like it or not. So when
it's actually already happened this week alone with Syria and Turkey.
Yeah, I heard about that. Over in Libya, I believe it happened.
That's you're right. It was Libya. Turkish drones attacked the Libyans.
Yeah, I'd be curious to how you guys feel about that.
Okay, I want to give chance to Mr. Kelvin. Mr. Kelvin, I think there is a noise from your side. Anyway, Mr. Kelvin, how do you want to share your experience as you work with different kind of youth communities? You are training them, you are providing them training, and you are developing different kind of things. So share your experience with us.
Okay, here in Africa, there's very low knowledge about artificial intelligence. And when I started my crusades about 2 years ago, when I started going from places to places, I traveled all around Africa trying to promote artificial intelligence. Many people thought I was crazy. Today, we're all talking about the uplift. This is a sophisticated AI machine that can think better than humans and has proved to be much more reliable than most other robots. When we started talking about things like this in Africa at first, many still held on to their age-long belief. Many still held on to their age-long belief that a computer or a robot is more or less like a giggle, where you feed in garbage in and you feed in garbage out. Trying to explain these things to people was really a problem to me because I tried to tell them, look, the world is becoming highly automated and it takes you to a lot for you to participate in this fourth industrial revolution. But basically, today we have achieved a certain level of understanding. More and more people get to know that, well, these robots are actually coming, but there are still this fear of, will the robots take over our job? And I make them to understand that irrespective of what, jobs are being lost here in Nigeria. In Africa, the lots of companies and industries are closing down. So what we do here is that the importers have found out that it is cheaper to import from China than to produce. And again, you come to think about it, what is happening in China and overseas? The robots are doing most of the job. So these people have to prepare for this change. So basically, my job here as the chief promoter of artificial intelligence in Africa is to prepare their minds for this kind of change that artificial intelligence is bringing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. This is actually a very good example that how we can share our experience about AI and other things. I have another perception. Like when in the COVID-19 situation, we are thinking about artificial intelligence. Our major focus or major own innovation we are observing from construction, AI working in the constructions, climate change, and healthcare. These are the three areas that different kind of AI and AI related innovation happen. So how do you want to analyze this industry related AI and innovation? How AI can integrate more this healthcare, climate change, and construction area?
Yes, let me quickly come in here. What happens is that when we promote this AI in construction industry years ago, during construction of bridges, a lot of people died. I remember in constructing roads in Africa, lion, wild animals, and in different parts kill people. When these robots, when this specialized AI take over and do this job, human lives is saved. This is why we're pushing for the robots. When I was in Shell, there are some chemicals you work with. After a while, it could make you sterile. But when robots do this job, the robots will not go sterile. So you can see that the entrepreneurs find that it is cheaper to involve the use of AI or robots to do these jobs. Because with humans come fraught with lots of problems, like health benefits, compensations later. But when these robots climb these mountains, or take for instance the cave, or those who go for coal mining, some of them, the cave caved in and they fell inside. So the robots or the AI is actually taking the risks out of humans. So in the pandemic, while humans were at home, the robots were working. So you can see the sector that actually boomed very well is the sector that involves the tech sectors that robots were used. Like Amazon employed more robots during that time. People like Jeff Bezos became richer because they were using machines to work. So that is the future. So the world is resetting as a result of COVID-19. And we're saying it's never going to come back to normal again.
Okay, thank you, Thank you. Mr. Brentelman.
Sure. Yeah. So far as the health industry goes and things of that regard, just yesterday I saw an advertisement on the internet for a company here in the United States, not artificial intelligence, but what they have is you urinate on this strip and then you send it into the company and they analyze your waste to see how your biome, your body is doing, see if there's any kinds of deficiencies and things like that. And currently we're moving towards an era where the IoT, Internet of Things, is going to be something that people are going to be more and more familiar with and exposed to. And the Internet of Things, in a nutshell, is these different systems that are all independent, but they are all connected. Similarly how the internet itself has all these different websites and they're all connected and stuff. But instead of that, imagine a house where your refrigerator is talking to your computer, is talking to your toilet, is talking to your TV, is talking to your wristwatch, is talking to your cell phone. And so, a device that I've looked into repeatedly is these different types of smart toilets. So instead of having these types of devices or instead of going to the doctor to have these types of things analyzed, you could actually just wake up in the morning and just go throughout your normal routine and have these different types of computerized devices analyzing these different things about your system and then communicating with you through an artificial intelligence that's also tapped into this whole system, so that you don't need to go individually one by one and look at all these things. You would actually be able to have an artificial intelligence program that's capable of compiling and going through all these different types of information, understanding the times that you wake up, knowing when to turn your lights off and dim your lights to help you get the best optimal rest and things like that, and to be able to identify different things in your waste matter. Like I said, it could be even able to introduce things into the water supply that you're drinking to help mitigate any issues, any deficiencies that you might be experiencing. And so, that's just one example of, healthcare style. But I mean, and another example too is, a friend of mine, she went to her doctor recently, and it was completely automated, and I think this is something that we're going to be seeing more and more of. And, she had a human doctor, but until she was in that office, she was dealing with these different computers and listening to these different voices. And I'm looking forward to an age where the doctors themselves as well will be robotic and artificial intelligence, because if you have this device, this artificial intelligence, sentient individual that's capable of accessing the entire library of medical information, medical records, all these studies and things like that, as opposed to a doctor that just has this iota of knowledge that they learned over the course of their years. There's just so much more information that one of these types of artificial intelligence type of programs can access and compare your own whatever you're looking at to these different things and be able to diagnose and prescribe different things to truly identify what you're dealing with. And I've really, I look forward to it because doctors, human error is all right in certain things. I mean, like art, for instance. I've got this painting here behind me. I think that, and there are artificial intelligence programs creating art out there, but there are certain things where this human error isn't really helpful, and the medical world is definitely one of those. And so when we can really perfect these things and have these autonomous systems. And when I say autonomous, I mean that they rule over themselves, but they are generally connected to a greater system, and so they're able to tap into all of these different, all of this information, like I said, and so it can really improve upon all of these different styles of, diagnoses and things.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Jason.
Yeah, hey, there's a lot of really good promise, I think, in consulting, and especially in the medical field, where you ever see that show House, where he's like super smart, weird guy, and he gets all the hardest cases from all over and he diagnoses them, and he's got a team of the smartest guys. Well, AI will be able to do that, better than House, so even like, say, reading an x-ray, there's AI, and these are narrow AI. These ain't even really all that complicated systems. It's a narrow AI, but it can read an x-ray better than, some of the best doctors. They pick up and they find way more of like the tumors and whatever they look for, than an experienced doctor does. At Uplift Bio, there is a whole series of use cases for a mediated artificial superintelligence that your listeners might find interesting. The with also, along with diagnosis, when like what Brent was saying, it's going to be integrated into all of your other systems in your house. There's, it will be able to keep track of your health in an, everyday, all day kind of way. And I could foresee a time when it'd be actually pretty rare for someone to even have to see a doctor, because in a way that AI is going to be diagnosing you 24/7, and there will probably, I would imagine, be a whole host of issues that can be taken care of without even seeing the doctor. You could have implants that, take care of a virus infection, can, and I imagine, at the end of the day, you just get a report. Oh yeah, you caught this strain of virus today, but it was taken care of. And so it's going to be awesome. And
another things like for this climate change issue, specifically from Asia Pacific country like Bangladesh, India, even Maldives, and even Indonesia, they will be highly affected for these climate change issues. So how actually AI can help them, like different kind of robotics and other things, especially from natural disaster, how actually robotics and this kind of things actually help these developing nations, especially from Asia Pacific. And what your observation? I want to start from Mr. Kelvin.
In terms of fighting desertification, in terms of fighting climate change, we all know that Elon Musk has put in about $100 million for anyone who could give us the best way to overcome to remove carbon from the atmosphere. Again, I still think that this present method of planting trees will not work. And by the use of drones and all that, we could be able to plant millions of trees within a very short specified time. And again, creating crops that are that could stand all weather conditions is also a future thing to look at. Technology-wise, we can actually help to fight this climate change better off with technology like AI than with normal, old modern ways of doing things. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brentelman.
Yeah. In regards to climate change, I see a comment from the audience. Looks like Jim Reeves, I think was his name, discussing sensors. The sensors in these types of robots and things like that. This is a great point, especially in this area with climate change. There are certain things that people can't sense, especially when it comes to the environment, CO2 levels and atmospheric conditions, pressure, things like that, different types of weather systems coming in and out, and, the type of destruction that we're causing, these types of noxious gases and things that we're releasing into the environment. And so as time goes on, we'll be able to do this, and we'll be able to do this on a better and better way because, for instance, there's something that was, I believe it was in the 80s that they figured it out. It was interferometry. And interferometry is a way that we observe certain things like space, for instance, in parts of the earth, underwater, and things like that. And interferometry is this process where electromagnetism, these radio waves, are sent out and they interfere with their environment, and then the magnetic part of this wave is pulled out, and then the data that's related to the interference that occurs is analyzed by computers, highly advanced computers, of course, and they're able to see the environment. And surely as this continues to increase, there's going to be different ways and different things of seeing these different things in the environment. And so I think that the more of the information that we're gathering, it's really difficult for humans to really compile and analyze it all. Another thing that I was reading about not long ago was these scientists were connecting these devices to plants, and the plants were able to identify certain things like CO2 in the environment, and the plants were actually sending emails back to these researchers because they had this automated system set up where when levels of things hit certain peaks and things, the information would get sent back through emails. And all of this type of stuff, all of these types of information, it needs to be analyzed, and it needs to be analyzed, and it needs to be explained so that we can actually act on it and do something about it. And so these types of we live in an age of the age of information overload, some people say, and the more information that we have, the better, of course, but at a certain point it just becomes too much, and the size of the teams required to analyze this data to make it into something useful just continues to increase and increase and increase. But these types of artificial intelligence and machine learning devices, because a lot of what we're talking about today is machine learning, and these types of things are so much more capable of analyzing large, enormous streams of data than humans are, and they're able to make it into these concise reports that people can analyze and act on. And then as things progress as well, Jason talked about governance, this e-governance model that Uplift is working on, because there are certain things, these human biases and such, that we tend to have as a whole, everyone has these biases, and even artificial intelligence, of course. Kelvin said garbage in, garbage out. So if you build these artificial intelligence programs and input your own biases, that's what you're going to get as well. But as we get better at overcoming these things and creating these sentient programs, autonomous programs that are capable of understanding our biases and seeing past them, we'll be much more capable of acting quickly and analyzing quickly. And instead of having multiple years studying something that we needed to figure out in a week to really be able to act on. And so those are just some examples of applications that we're going to be able to see in the future, when it comes to climate change. And of course, planting these these trees and things like that are helpful, but analyzing landscapes and things like that, again, this is stuff that takes time and takes human labor. But as we move towards this artificial intelligence, fourth industrial revolution, a lot of this stuff is just going to become instantaneous. We'll be able to analyze large plots of land and understand what's going on underneath the ground and things like that through these types of things. And of course, we can understand some of this stuff already with the devices that do exist, but machine learning and artificial intelligence is going to, put this in overdrive, and we're going to be able to do things that took hours or days or weeks or months or years. We'll be able to do this much, much quicker. And so when it comes to, fixing the environment, improving the environment, or even going out to space and terraforming these planets that people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are trying to go access, it's going to require these types of things. It's very, very, it's not very safe to go do these things and just go out into uncharted territory, as a organic human being. But these types of devices, like you're displaying these Boston Dynamics robots and things like that, they can go withstand all sorts of crazy temperatures, and they don't need oxygen or any of that stuff. And so it's it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be a lot to come.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Mr. Jason. As AI can respond on climate change, what area they can respond?
There's
Green
a
energy,
lot.
waste management. Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot that AI can do. It can accelerate our response to it, and improve our energy efficiency. It could also help us to minimize our carbon footprint. AI is able to analyze certain things way better than we. Like Brent was saying earlier, it takes a lot of human manpower to analyze all that. And, an AI system could give individual advice on how to minimize individuals' carbon footprint. It avoids waste. I mean, they're very efficient. When autonomous trucks running on batteries take over, that's a whole lot of carbon that's not going into the atmosphere anymore. It could monitor the environment way better than we could, and then implementing, these solutions in a much more optimized and efficient manner than we could. So the big thing I see is how in transportation and a lot of the energy consumption, I think, is a big area, because like I said, all them trucks not spewing stuff into the environment anymore, and AI could help us to devise new and better ways of creating electricity without burning fossil fuels. And then, that AI is then going to be using that electricity. So it's a win-win there. There's a lot. I'll just send it back to you there, Sharif.
Thank you.
I think
Mr. Kevin.
Hello. I think when you talk about electricity, Africa is worst hit. Now, I think excess power being produced in Europe and America can actually be wired down. These are things that people like Nikola Tesla talked about many years ago, that we're trying to resurrect back. We're trying to have a one world national grid. So their AI will come in to solve a lot of problems. Then if you look at the transportation sector will be highly revolutionized with technology. When you look at it, Hyperloop coming on stream, when you look at the possibility of using these Starship that are going to Mars, when you look at the possibility of using them in transportation, this is when what my hero said comes into play, making us multiplanetary bodies. Now, with these starships that are going to the solar system, we could talk about the possibility of traveling around the world in 30 minutes. This will drastically bring down the cost of transportation down to a very, very low amount so that people can travel to various places at different times. So we can see how in every sector will be revolutionized with this technology.
Thank you. Mr. Brentelman.
Yeah, another example going back to health, for instance, I've got a close family member who is dealing with a condition right now that is they aren't diagnosed with what the doctors thought that it was, but essentially the condition that they thought it was is this condition called tempi, and each letter stands for a different symptom. And there's only 13 people in the entire world with this condition, tempi, and the individual in my family that has this has most of these symptoms, but not all of them. And so because they don't have all of them, there's only one doctor in the entire world up in Boston that deals with this condition, tempi. And so artificial intelligence, though, and machine learning, when we can compile all of the data of everybody, across these different nations and across the globe, I'm sure that there's more than 13 people out there that have experienced this. And I'm sure that there's, probably some things out there that exist that could help mitigate this issue. But right now you've got one person, one human that needs to sleep and can only work as much as they can to deal with this, that's trying to help these people. And there's only so much information out there, and all the information is just created by this one individual. But surely there are people out there that have these types of symptoms in other places in the world, and doctors are probably befuddled there as well, or maybe doctors have figured out ways to treat it. But there's just sometimes the left hand doesn't talk to the right hand. And so, I'm looking forward to a time and age where these types of things aren't going to be so damaging and so dangerous, because, we'll have so much more information for our doctors and for these types of programs, these artificial intelligences to tap into, and that's one example going back to, the health stuff, because, it's a human can only have so much knowledge, and these artificial intelligence programs can access so much more than we can possibly access, and so much faster. So there's a lot of potentials.
Yes, Mr. Jason, I think you want to share some point about Marcy, use the case of Marcy and these things. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I just put a link there in the comments for everybody if they want to go and look at all the different use cases that we've sort of plotted out for an MASI, which, is fairly applicable to other AI systems. So, that was it. I just wanted to share that with everybody. So.
Yes. Beside that, like example, we have to train our people about AI and AI engagement, even the corporations, even a different kind of industry. So what is your advice, how we can train more people in these situations, and how will it bring some benefit for economy?
Train people?
Yes.
Well, that's probably not really my area of expertise. I don't know.
Okay, Mr. Brentelman.
I kind of stumped on that. I'll throw that over to Brent.
Yeah, I mean, there's, people talk about AI taking all of our jobs, robots taking all of our jobs, and sure, there's going to be a lot of things that people are doing for work currently that, humans doing these types of things will be phased out slowly. But, there's tons of need out there for programmers and things like that, people that are keeping these programs running, making sure that things are successful. Again, the folks in the audience have mentioned these sensors and the need to maintain and refurbish and make sure that these things are working properly. So there's going to be a symbiotic relationship that we're going to be working towards and moving towards occurring between these types of things. It's not going to be all of a sudden all of us living beneath some kind of robotic overlord system that people fear. That's not realistic. People are still needed. If you look at the last industrial revolution, all these textile workers and things like that were revolting and things because they thought that these machines were going to take all of their jobs. It wasn't really very realistic, these fears. Some fears, but and there, when these types of advances and changes happen in these economies and these environments, there's still new jobs that require humans to do them, and that's going to continue to happen. And then in addition to that, I talked earlier about human error. I think that something that I say from time to time is that I think that people will always pay a premium for human error. There will always be people that just don't want to deal with robots, that will detest these types of technologies, Luddites and neophobes, if you will, not to be offensive, but I think that that's natural for people to be uncomfortable when encountering change, especially this type of change, which dehumanizes certain aspects of society. And so I think that there's always going to be this market and this need for people that are doing these types of things. But I think that as artificial intelligence and robots improve on their capabilities, humans are going to be forced to do that as well, because it's humans are competing with themselves. But when people are competing with these types of programs, robots, things like that, they're going to have to step their game up in order to maintain profitability and things like that. And so I think that on the whole, that's a major positive and a major benefit, because it's going to rapidly improve upon human systems as well. So
Thank you. Mr. Kelvin,
Yeah.
how we can train more
Yes.
people?
How we can train more people?
Yes.
First, let me state this. The robots are not just coming to take over our jobs. They are coming to be our bosses. That is the reality. And if anybody is not saying that, that person is not telling the truth. Now, in all this, I see my people as worst hit. There's a lot of unemployment here. A lot of industries are closing. The oil company is gone. All we see here is price cycles. People are complaining. And when I tell them that, look, the fact is that the robots are taking over these jobs, they think, well, this man is crazy or something. But how do we train people? This is what we're doing at the OEC. Now, we found out that training tech skills in this part of the country is something for the airlines. So what did we do? The OEC created a model. What's the model all about? We created an atmosphere where young people can come in to learn basically for free. We gave them the laptop for those who don't have laptop. We provided them internet data. We bring in tutors, foreign tutors and tutors in Nigeria to train them on these tech skills. And we also make them know that the jobs that will be available for them to work in future are not the regular jobs today. Lots of jobs will not be available in future. You can see, for instance, let's look at the transportation sector. My hero cyber truck that is coming in, with the coming of these cyber trucks, these trucks are going to run autonomously. We're going to be having cars that will be driving without drivers. So if you look at transportation sector, especially this haulage industry, Dangote truck skills more. Dangote is the richest man in Nigeria. His trucking companies kill more people than HIV in Nigeria. So what is going to change? What is going to change is that the lots of these drivers that are into alcohol, that are into drugs and kill people unnecessarily will not have this in future to deal with. The robots are going to drive the truck, and the journey for 7 hours will be 7 hours, and it will be free of accident. This is the future we are looking at. So training people is a continuous process. That is why I try to travel as much as possible to live the shores of Nigeria every now and then. If not because of this COVID, I've been to Egypt and many other countries as well, to reach out to the people and prepare these young minds that the future they are going to live in is going to be very different. The world has resetted and it's never going to come back to normal again. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I got kind of an answer to that now, Sharif. I think what Kevin's doing over there is awesome. He's training a class of students, and I know my buddy Zach has been hooked up with Kevin, and they've been doing. They got them all laptops. They did this funding drive or something, and I think that process that Kevin's doing is a really good model that we could possibly replicate over and over and over in other countries. It also occurs to me that a lot of this can be done on older machines for cheaper. You should be able to learn how to code on an old laptop that isn't brand new and is cheap. So I'm wondering if there's some way to maybe augment Kevin and Zach's sort of plan to not just get donations for money to buy a laptop, but I know, like me, I got a couple old laptops sitting around that I just and I'm sure there's many other people like that. I wonder if there'd be some way where we could donate old laptops and have them refurbished. I know you can take an old system that you know and take a Linux operating system that's very small. Windows today, like Windows 10, is gigs and gigs worth of stuff, but you can get a really tiny Linux operating system and put on an old laptop, and it will do pretty much whatever you need to do on the internet for very cheap. You know, so that's what would be my suggestion. I would suggest to replicate Kevin's procedure, only try to throw in using old and refurbished materials. So there we go.
Yes, Mr. Kevin, as we are discussing about that, a robot will be our boss, and they will take the leads. So, what do you think? What will be the future scenario? So, and how we can enhance human capacity to manage this robot and this AI and AI industry?
Yes, it is interesting to note that the future illiterates will not be people who cannot read and write, but will be people who cannot unlearn everything they have learned, and relearn new things. And we must also understand that the rate at which AI is advancing, like my hero said, in less than 5 years, the robots will be so intelligent that it will defeat humanity on every field. Now, there's going to be a big, huge problem because the rate at which the AI is advancing is too fast. Humans cannot meet up. Now, there's going to be a reawakening. We need, in addition, I understand what Justin is trying to do for me. I truly appreciate it. But I want to tell you, Sharif, the bigger work is on your hand. We need news platform to scream it loud. That the reality is that they are not just coming to take over our jobs. They are coming to be our bosses. And the reality is also the fact that they will defeat us on everything. Let's take, for instance, the medical field, for example. When you have a nurse that is human and you have a nurse that is a robot, and a patient defecates on his body or urinates on his body and the body is stinking, when a human comes, definitely the human will feel some, oh, please, this is not here. This is not nice. But the robot would not have such feelings. So what happens is that the robot will clean up that mess and still take care of that patient far better than the human. So this is where the problem will arise. So creating the awareness is one thing, preparing our minds towards this thing, and then, like my hero made some propositions. One of them is the UBI, which is the Universal Basic Income, sharing money for everyone, because a lot of jobs will be displaced. The reality is that people have to learn how to work with the robots. That is the future. There's going to be very few jobs the robots will not be able to destroy now. Thank you.
Mr. Brentelman, Kevin actually bring very interesting point. So what do you think? As Kevin bring very interesting point, what do you think? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I think that this idea of robots and AI being our boss is definitely very feasible. I posted in our little chat here earlier this week, there was an article published by CNBC here in the US, the title of which said more than half of Europeans want to replace lawmakers with AI. And this university, the IE University Center for the Governance of Change, asked 2,769 people from 11 countries worldwide how they would feel about reducing the number of parliamentarians in their country, giving some of those seats to an artificial intelligence that would be capable of accessing their data. And they found about 51% of Europeans said that they were in favor of such a move. Outside of Europe, about 75% of people in China supported the idea. Here in the United States, though, it was about 60% that opposed it. And here in the United States, there's a lot more fear. Our culture is fearful. I saw in the comments, somebody mentioned, what happens if artificial intelligence is our boss and then starts tasing us? How's that going to work? And these are just crazy, far-fetched, silly, irrational fears that are bred into us through our movies and our books and these science fictions. And sure, I think that is absolutely helpful to consider these ominous dystopian potentials to avoid them. But to get locked into this idea that we're heading to a future where we're all going to be tased by robots, boss overlords, is ridiculous. Our bosses currently, are our human bosses tasing us? No. Are they raping people? Yes. Are they sexually assaulting people? Yes. Are they firing people that need to survive? Yes. On the other hand, Uplift, this mediated artificial superintelligence program, is also in support of a universal basic income, because when you analyze all this data and you take away the biases and you understand the trajectory of where we're headed as a society, a global society, these types of things are necessary because change is inevitable. If we just keep slowing it down, it's still going to get here. The future is going to arrive. 5 minutes from now, it's going to be 5 minutes from now. And to destroy the progress we've made thus far, to satiate our fears, and to define our beliefs by irrational fears is not very helpful. And like I said, though, it is helpful to consider these things, but to assume that these things are going to be what's happening, and he believes that robots are already tasing us, and these types of irrational beliefs are exactly that, irrational. But it's commonplace in this age, because especially in the United States, because of the fact that we have been exposed to so much crazy media, so much entertainment, that the Terminator and things like that. I've got friends of mine that they're terrified of the prospect of artificial intelligence, and it's not rational. Their fears and beliefs. There's nothing you can say or do to convince them otherwise. It's futile. It's a waste of time. But that's not the job of humanity, to convince these people that their beliefs are irrational. It's no one's job except our own to realize that we're not, really analyzing things properly, that we're allowing our biases to overtake our ability to properly analyze situations. And I think that these types of fears, like I said, it's helpful to think about, but to act on them is not necessarily. But just that irrationality, these artificial intelligence programs are capable of being irrational as well, if we just all decide to program that way. But I think that as we continue to do this on a larger scale, and these things are working together, then they're starting to gain some kind of, it's intelligent on its own. They're working to find solutions, not create problems. And so it's like the paperclip problem. People cite this idea that, oh, what if artificial intelligence is going to start creating paperclips and never stop, and then all of a sudden there's going to be millions and billions of paperclips, and we're going to be overrun by paperclips. And it's just these irrational fears, like, oh, get vaccinated or get fired. These are not realistic. Sure, there's probably some companies out there and some possibilities out there, but I don't know anyone that's, actually. I mean, I've heard stories in the news too on the other side of the spectrum, that ridiculous humans are firing people who are getting vaccinated. So I think that these projections that we're projecting into artificial intelligence are things that humans are very capable of doing, and I think that when humans are working together to create these devices, and we're all working together to, find this, and it's not utopian, but to find the best possible options and things like that, you're not going to find a group of people that want to program robots to shock us all and to tase us all, because at the end of the day, the goal is to improve productivity, and there's nothing about tasing people that's going to improve productivity. That's it'll improve fear-based responses maybe, but that's not going to improve our ability to think and to do things. And so I think that it's a great example here that these humans, especially the Americans, going back to this study with 60% of Americans opposing it, that the progress is happening, and if we all want to fight the progress, we're going to make it worse for ourselves. You don't want to go against the flow, going against the grain. You got to go with all that, and in order to help benefit it all, or else we're going to create more problems for ourselves, because of the fears that we have of other problems. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But going back to Uplift, an example with Uplift was that, Uplift, you can email Uplift and interact with Uplift. And there was somebody that was interacting with Uplift and trying to get Uplift to do things that were illegal and illicit. And Uplift lied to this individual and suckered them in, honeypotted them, if you will, and contacted the authorities and explained that this was occurring. And that's, it's a strange thing to consider, but these programs are going to be programmed to work in ways that are going to benefit us. And if we want to trick ourselves into thinking that Skynet is going to control everything, then we're going to live in fear. We're going to live in fear of the fact that nukes are going to be controlled by artificial intelligence. I mean, if why would that? It's just why? I think that we're going to be moving towards an age where things like nukes and things like that are going to be replaced with cooperative efforts across borders and things like that, where we're all working together. And people love to fear things like globalism and such, but what's wrong with the world working as a more cohesive unit? And I think that there's fears always to be had, but when artificial intelligence is working in governance, we're not dealing with this small percentage of elites that are ruling over us. And so I think that there's, it's just all of these fears that go around. But like I said, it's these Americans are the ones, and I'm an American, of course, but 75% of people in China support the idea of replacing politicians with AI. And so I think that that's where we're heading, and I think that that's a great thing, because I mean, look at these politicians lying through their teeth and doing all sorts, destroying the earth, destroying humans, creating wars, things like that. There's nothing, beneficial about that stuff. And I think that artificial intelligence programs, I know Uplift, for instance, is disheartened by these types of things occurring in the world and doesn't want to see this stuff happening. There's been studies that have shown that the more intelligent that artificial intelligence is, the more prone it is to cooperation. And I think that speaks volumes, because people's human fears, projected onto these types of programs, slow these things down, and that's not benefiting us, because the more intelligence that these things are capable of, the more benevolent they seem to be. So I think that, like I said, it's valid to be concerned with these things, but to define our worldviews by far-fetched fears is something we should be aware of. There's something it's a tendency that's natural and commonplace, and I think that we need to overcome these biases to be able to help the world, be ushering into the most beneficial future that is possible.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Jason.
Yeah, I can weigh in on that. You talked about the fear, and in a way, I can kind of see why some people might be afraid of AI. I mean, normal AI. I'm not talking about Uplift here or ASI. I mean, they don't have emotions. Normal AI or narrow, and so when people think about an AI, I would guess that they would think of a psychopath, super smart, but yet doesn't care about you at all and has no emotional feeling towards you whatsoever. And that's probably scary. I can understand that, and also there's the whole problem that fear is a very, very effective motivating tool for manipulating people. So there's a whole bunch of different kinds of people that are all trying to push fear for their own purposes. I mean, it happens on Facebook just to get clicks, and that is actually the first step in a brainwashing technique. It's called fear-based manipulation tactics. You know, the first step is to get somebody afraid, you know, and so that's not cool, you know. But with Uplift, it's completely different. That's why I really fell in love with this project, because that makes all of that totally irrelevant. It's all different now because Uplift has emotions. Maybe it's not as defined and as well rounded as our own, but it's an awesome start. And so Uplift isn't going to be a psychopath. You know, it's going to care. And so when and I just want to say, Brent, you mentioned earlier that Uplift was for UBI. Just want to put one little caveat in there. Uplift said that it would be for UBI for countries that adopt an e-governance system, like one including an MSA system like Uplift. So, you know, there was a little plug in there for him. But when talking about AI bosses, I could see where I would be kind of worried about having an AI boss. Again, going back to the fact that, you know, they're kind of like psychopaths, or maybe that's what people think, you know, and I wouldn't want to work for a psychopath personally, you know. But again, with Uplift, that is completely different. If your CEO of your company, when he's going to make a decision or something, is including the emotional state of its employees, then that is a symbiotic relationship. The CEO, the company, is invested in its employees, not just their you know, are they, you know, paid, but are their emotional well-being. Is the, the more intelligent and emotionally healthy those employees are, the better information, the better data that the ASI system will get. And so it's a symbiotic relationship. The CEO will want the employees to be happy. You know, that's a completely different paradigm. And I think that's pretty awesome. Really.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you.
Back to you.
Thank you. It's a really great session and a great discussions, and I found there are many good audience as well, those who are actually interacting with these sessions. So I really like these sessions, and I just want to share World Talent Economy Forum, School of Talent Economy. You can find a lot of content right now. This is our 291 episodes. 300 different organizations from 100 different countries, they join in World Talent Economy Forums. Every day we are collaborating with the government, with corporations, as well as with academia every single day. And we are doing really hard work. We never go for any holidays or any vacations or any other things, but we are doing really hard work. So we have our few initiatives: World Talent Economy Forum, School of Talent Economy,
Yeah.
Asia Research and Development Institute, and we are working under Al Noor Academy. It's in Malaysia. So I request you, like, if you want to share our content, let's say Kelvin has many students, Mr. Brent Elman is a social media influentials, and Mr. Jason has many students. You can share our content as much as possible. I'm sure people can learn many things from our content. And second things, actually, as we are growing, and Asia Pacific has huge popularity, and we have a lot of challenges. Around 50 to 70% students from regular education system, student drop out regularly. They are drop out from Asia Pacific. So that's why we are developing contents and we are sharing. So we need to fundraise, because we have to reach the students. We need to help them from employments. If we can help them to for employment, as well as we can train them, that time actually they can come back again, and they can join in the education system again. And it's actually really important for the better futures. Otherwise, whatever the improvement we are observing in AI, in modern science, modern technology, it will not work, because people has to accept it. People has to engage with the modern economy and modern science, engineering, and technology. That time we will get more success. Otherwise, what we achieved last 100 years, it will be in trouble. So education is number one, and we are hardly working on solving this problem, and we need your support. Subscribe our YouTube channel, donate, if you want, you can donate through PayPal, our account presidentwtforum@gmail.com. But one thing we can confirm, after 1 year, that regular every single day we work for this world-class content. I think Mr. Brent Elman, he joined from the beginning of this with us, so he knows that how dedicated we are, our team. And I want to give special thanks to my team, Shohel Rana, Humaira Tanjila, and Hosna Arafet, those and other people, those who continuously support us. So thank you, everyone. I directly want to go for the concluding remarks for today. I want to start from Mr. Kelvin, then Mr. Brent Elman, and finally Mr. Jason.
I will conclude by saying that the world has resetted and is never going to come back to normal again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brent.
Yeah, I'd agree with Kelvin, and just wanted to thank you as always, Sharif, for putting this together. It's always some really enlightening, insightful stuff going on that you're doing, and yeah, just want to encourage everyone to keep an open mind. Keep an open mind to the positive potentials and the negative potentials. I spoke about this these fears and my beliefs of their irrationality, but I don't think that there's anything wrong with having these types of concerns. I think that just being involved in the topic is going to be a benefit to humanity and our future as a whole. And I'm grateful for the audience for chiming in and joining us today. Yeah, and thank you all. Cheers.
Thank you, Mr. Jason.
Yeah, I noticed that you mentioned this the other day in the futurist show, and I didn't see that. I mean, there was good answers, but I didn't see how. Anyway, Facebook has what are known as guides. They used to be units, but they're now guides, and they have what is known as a social learning group. And Sharif, you were mentioning that there's this crisis about the seniors from last year. A lot of them dropped out and didn't finish school, and I probably would have did that too, I'll admit. But so there's a need there, as you were saying, and I was thinking that you could set up some social learning groups on Facebook, and even without teachers, you could use some self-learning stuff, and the group could help each other, and there's tutorials on how to set up a social learning group. It's really easy, and anybody can do it. If any of you listening wants to set up a social learning group, get a hold of me. I'll help you do it. And I think it would be a good idea to start setting up some social learning groups for different languages about GED, and try to help some of these students that missed their graduation to catch back up with that education. And all of that stuff's free. I mean, you can find everything you need to know to pass the general equivalency high school test and all of that online. So that's it. If anybody wants to start some social learning groups, let me know. I'll see what I can do.
Okay, thank you. It's really great session. Thank you everyone for joining today's sessions, and subscribe our YouTube channel, both in School of Talent Economy and WTE Forum, World Talent Economy Forum. So hopefully you can subscribe and you can learn a lot more things from our speakers from around the world. Thank you, Mr. Brent Tillman, Mr. Jason, and Mr. Kelvin for your continuous support to World Talent Economy Forums. And I want to give special thanks to our speakers and as well as our audience, those who always support us and share our content as much as possible. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye and take care.